my name's Rachel and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video I am going to be doing a finance book review. So in 2022 I made it one of my goals to read a new personal finance or investing book every single month. So we're coming to the end of January, so I have read my first book, which is Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. Now I have heard this book be talked about a lot, particularly from people who are following a kind of financial independence route. So it's been a really interesting read. It's important to note that this book is written for the US market, so some of the information isn't that relevant for the UK market. However, I still found it an interesting read and definitely took some really good points for it. So in this book, Vicki Robin outlines a 9-step process to reaching financial independence. And along the way, she gives lots of different examples of different people and the way that they have approached this. So what I'm going to do first of all is start with a really good quote, probably my favourite quote from the book, and then we're going to go through the 9-step process and I'm going to pick out any particular points that I found interesting. So here's the quote from the book that I really liked. It says, "Between our mortgages, car financing and student loans and credit card debt, we can't afford to quit work. We are making a dying at work rather than making a living, so that we can live it up on the weekend. Consider now the average consumer spending his or her hard-earned money. Saturday, take your clothes to the dry cleaners and your car to the service station to have the tyre rotated and that funny noise checked out. Go on to the grocery store to buy a week's worth of food for the family and grumble at the checkout that you remember that 4 sacks of groceries used to cost $75 instead of $125. Go to the mall to buy the book that everyone's reading, emerge with 2 books, a suit that was a half-price sale, with shoes to match, and some new clothes for the kids, all paid for with a credit card. Home, yard work, or gardening, as we call it here in the UK. Oops, a trip to the garden centre for pruning shears. Come home with 2 pots of primroses, some new pots, oh, and yes, the pruning shears. Fiddle with the toaster that's been burning every slice, even on the lightest setting. Fail to find the warranty. Go to the home improvement store to buy a new one. Come out with the shelves and brackets for the den, colour samples for painting the kitchen, and oh yes, the toaster." She then goes on to talk about what would happen on Sunday, which again made me really think about the way that we are spending our weekends at the moment. And she talks about the concept of making a dying in this book rather than making a living, and how actually what you do for work might not leave you feeling positive at the end of the day, and it's actually really dragging you down. This section particularly is on consumerism and the fact that what happens often is that you're working in the week and then on the weekend you're spending all of the money that you made that week, and that the focus needs to be on valuing your life energy. So in this book, what Vicki Robin really wants you to consider is to really value your life energy. So essentially, when she's talking about money in this book, she often explains it in a way of being life energy. So she'll say, rather than thinking of it as money, think of it as life energy, because obviously you've had to do something to make that money, and was your life energy worth that? So for example, if you're putting something on a credit card, as simple as, we always use this example, but a coffee, was it worth the 30 minutes potentially that you had to work to pay for that coffee and a cake? So there's a 9-step process to reach financial independence, which is outlined in this book. Some of it I think is brilliant. Some of it I potentially wouldn't do, because for me personally, I feel that there are steps within this book that are a little bit time consuming. But I do understand that this is a process, and that actually some of that time might be time well spent if it means that you can get to financial independence. So the 9-step program, steps 1 to 7 are you transforming your relationship with money. So I'm going to read through basically a very short synopsis of each step and give you an idea of what I think of it as well. So step 1 is finding out how much you've made in your lifetime and calculating your net worth. So obviously this is a really good, important first step. I personally have absolutely no idea at present what my net worth is. I have a rough idea of what I have in investments. I also have a rough idea of how much we've got left on our mortgage. and I know how much is in my bank account, but do I have all those figures together? No, and it might be something that I need to do. Step 2 is being in the present and tracking your life energy. So it's that word again, life energy. She says, how much are you trading your life energy for? Establishing the actual costs in time and money required to maintain your job and compute your real hourly wage. Keep track of all money that comes in and out of your life. So what I thought was really good in here is figuring out your actual hourly wage. So when I get a payslip, I can see obviously how much I've made, and on a payslip you can see that broken down into an hourly wage. However, I haven't considered how much I've spent on my commute that day. I haven't considered any costs, for example, clothes that I have to wear specifically for that job. So for example, I potentially wouldn't wear something like this to an office job. That's an extra cost that is incurred through going to that place of work and working there. Also, how much am I spending on lunch? Figuring out your hourly wage from that, as I said, including things like your commute. And actually, even though you might be thinking you could be earning anything from minimum wage up to a lot of money, when you take all of that into consideration, how much are you actually earning in an hour? And then taking that a step further and thinking, okay, I've just spent £3.50 on a coffee, and potentially after you take away all those other things, that might be what you're earning in a whole hour. Okay, so step 3 is every month total all expenses within categories and figure out how many hours of life energy this took. So in this book, Your Money or Your Life, she gives you a specific way that this should be recorded. For me personally, in terms of budgeting, I do have a budget on a spreadsheet, and then to figure out my expenditure, rather than inputting it and outputting it every single day, I use Monzo at the moment. So for me personally, I really enjoy using this card because it breaks down all your expenditure into different categories. So if it sees that I've gone to a grocery store, it will put that cost into groceries automatically. It's really, really good, and it makes it nice and simple. So that's what I'm currently doing at the moment, but there is a different process outlined in this book. Okay, so step 4 is ask yourself these 3 questions. Did I receive satisfaction and life value from the energy I spent? Is this expenditure in alignment with my values and life purpose? How might this expenditure change if I didn't have to work for money? And then step 5 is to make your life energy visible. Now for me, this is something that I probably won't be doing. So basically the idea is that you figure out how much money you've made and how much money you're spending, and you put it on a chart and you put it somewhere visible. So for example, on a wall in your house. I don't know, but I just wouldn't feel comfortable with having that on a wall in my house. Not because I don't want to look at it, but just because I think I would feel uncomfortable if people popped over and saw that on the wall. So she does say, as long as it's somewhere that you can look at on the daily basis, so you could have it on your computer or on your phone, but it's just important to check in daily and see it daily. An important part of this that she stresses is really tracking that, and I can see that tracking your income and outgoings is really important, whether it's visible to other people or not. As long as it's visible to you and you're tracking it, that is super, super important, because I think it does help to see if you are overspending and potentially spending more money than you're earning. So step 6 is valuing your life energy and minimizing spending. So using your money intelligently. So now you have a really good idea of how much you're actually earning on an hourly basis. It really helps you to value the money that you're making and value that life energy, as she calls it. And consider whether you really need to buy the things that you're buying, essentially. So an example of this, for example, she said about magazine subscriptions. Are you actually reading the magazines that are coming through the door, or are they just piling up? And would you rather have half an hour of your time back than have a magazine subscription? That kind of thing. Okay, so steps 8 to 9 are all about transforming your relationship with your future. And this for me is the bit I liked. It's the investing bit. I generally talk about investing on this channel rather than more general finance and budgeting. And it will come as no surprise that within this book, she is recommending investing in index funds. And she goes on to say that there's a couple of other people in the blogging sphere who also recommend investing in index funds, specifically if they are working on their financial independence journey. So she mentions the minimalists invest in index funds. The minimalists are, as it sounds, minimalists. They actually had a program on Netflix that was quite good. So they're spending minimally, and then minimally, and then investing in index funds. And then the other person that she mentioned in the book was Mr. Money Mustache, who I actually haven't heard of before, so I'll check it out. She then goes into quite a lot of detail about retirement plans, but as I said, this book is more for the US market, so she's talking about Roth IRAs and 401ks, which we don't have here in the UK, but essentially she's saying to take advantage of your retirement plans that you might have with your company, or if you're self-employed, thinking about opening up something like a self-invested personal pension. She also briefly touches on investing in real estate and suggests buying things like a duplex so that you could rent out part of your home as well as living in it. For me personally, and again, I don't know if this is a UK-based thing, but I think in this country it's difficult enough to get on the housing ladder as it is, and there doesn't seem to be a lot of kind of duplex or quadplex houses available in the UK. Yeah, for me personally, I didn't think this was potentially a viable option. I wouldn't have enough money to be able to buy something where I had enough space for me to live and someone else, but that might just be the UK market, maybe. I suppose in the UK you could consider renting out a room to a lodger, something like that might be more appropriate. But it was interesting to see that this formed quite a big part of the investing section in this book, when I'm not sure that it's that realistic here in the UK, but some of you might be investing in this way. So if you are, or you're doing buy-to-lets, then please do pop some comments down below and let me know how that's working for you. So overall, I thought this was a really motivating book. I enjoyed listening to it on Audible, and it definitely got me thinking about my life energy, as she puts it, and thinking, actually, do I need to spend this money on this thing? In terms of investing, as I said, it's mainly talking about investing in index funds and ETFs, which is fantastic, and they're a really beginner-friendly way of investing. There wasn't much detail beyond that, really. So if you're looking for a book that specifically talks about investing, if you're thinking about financial independence, then there are probably other books that go into more detail. But if you are wanting to pay off debt, sort your life out, sort your expenditure out, sort your budget out, and figure out a way forward, then this is a really interesting book to read. Thank you so much for watching, and have a really lovely day. Bye bye.